On today's Roland Martin Unfiltered, the day after the election, we're going to break down what took place all across the country. What does it mean for African Americans? Well, at the top of the show, we'll talk to Pam Keith because in Florida, although Andrew Gillum has conceded, the vote total has shrunk, and he is only about 10,000 votes away from igniting an automatic recount, which also then the question comes up, what about those absentee ballots and provisional ballots? We'll talk about that. Also on the show, Latino vote, how powerful was it? Did they turn out? Was it suppressed? We'll talk to one of the pollsters with Latino Decisions about that. Also, one of the sisters who won yesterday, Ayanna Pressley. She's the first woman of color to represent Massachusetts in Congress. We will talk to her on today's show as well. Democrats take back the House. Black House members, their numbers increase. What is going to happen when it comes to them being in power? And also an absolutely weird, strange as hell news conference today with Donald Trump claiming total victory. Really, dude? Okay. And he fires Jeff Sessions, Attorney General. He has left the building moments ago that happened. Folks, it's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin
All right, folks, it is the day after the election. Actually, it feels like the same day because we didn't leave here until after midnight. And so we are breaking down what took place in the election. Yes, I know y'all thought I was going to wear a suit. Damn it, I was too tired. Okay, so I said, look, we're just going to get casual with it. But we're examining what is going on in Georgia. Stacey Abrams is still fighting. She is fighting so hard in order to get that race under 51%. Which would force a runoff. So that's what's happening in the Georgia race. Right now, Brian Kemp has 50.3% of the vote. Stacey Abrams is at 48.7%. And I need to double check that, folks, in the control room. Let me know, is it 50 plus 1, meaning 51%, or is it actually, could it be 50.1? That actually won. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. So she wants to get Brian Kemp under 50% to actually force the runoff. But what we're watching is happening in Florida. Last night, Andrew Gillum conceded to Ron DeSantis. But the issue, though, the issue that we have there is the question is what is going to happen with those votes. That number, when he conceded, it was about 103,000. It is now down to about 50,000. And so if it gets even lower, that would trigger an automatic recount, which could then reveal irregularities. They also got to deal with provisional ballots that were cast. And also there are thousands of absentee ballots that were thrown out. And so we're going to talk to Pam Keith about that. But right now, what I want to do is, in a moment, I'm going to go to LaTosha Brown and Cliff Albright with Black Voters Matter. But we'll talk to them. So we got them lined up. Ayanna Presley. We'll talk to folks with Latino decisions as well. But let's talk about Florida right now. And let's go to Pam Keith. So, Pam, you, of course, you're there in Florida. You sent out a tweet a few moments ago where you said, you talked about these absentee ballots that need to be corrected. Can you explain that?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me, Roland. I am calling you from the Turnpike in Florida. And you at the top of the show said that it was a 10,000 vote cap to trigger a recount. That number has gone down. It is now down to 500 votes. So for your listeners and viewers, in Florida, the absentee ballots have to be signed on the back. And that signature has to match the signature on your state issue ID. So some of those absentee ballots were rejected because the signatures didn't look like they matched. Some of them were rejected because there was no signature at all. But that can be corrected. That can be, you can perfect the ballot by submitting an affidavit with an appropriate signature. So currently, we are mobilizing our Democrats here in Florida to try to chase down those voters and say, hey, your ballot was rejected. Would you please sign this affidavit to perfect your ballot so it'll be counted tomorrow?
And talk about the provisional ballots, because obviously we know that a lot of African Americans, if their name was not on the list, they had to vote with a provisional ballot. Any idea of how many provisional ballots we're talking about in Florida?
I don't know, but let me give you some facts on how that happened. In Florida, we have about 2 weeks of early voting. In the early voting period, you can go there. They have these centrally located polling places like major libraries or community buildings or whatever. And so everybody goes to the same place for early voting. But on election day, you don't go to that place. You go to your precinct. You don't know where your precinct is unless you look at your voting ID card or you Google it or go online. So what happened is that a lot of people who saw their friends and family early vote at the early vote locations went to those locations to vote on election day. And then were told, oh, no, this is not your place. And so what happened was that they were forced to vote provisional ballots. And it is unclear to me at this time, because there are some supervisors of elections that are saying, no, those are not valid ballots because you were not in the right physical place when you voted in. I don't know that that's true. And it may be something that a court needs to determine, because if a person is voting, 4 blocks away from their precinct and it's the same ballot and it's the same issues, I don't understand why you would reject that ballot merely because they were not in the right physical place. So remains to be seen what's going to be done with those ballots. But I heard several stories on election day of people who went to early vote locations to vote on election day, and they were forced to vote a provisional ballot.
And so again, we're seeing all of these issues that are taking place, and look, these are critically important issues that's happening in Florida. And so how will this also impact the U.S. Senate race? Because that was even a smaller percentage in terms of a difference when Bill Nelson conceded to Rick Scott.
Right. So it's not just a Senate race, but also our Secretary of Agriculture as a manual recount. That's how close that one was. Bill Nelson, who is our Democratic nominee for Senate, his margin was just as small. We're talking like in a state of 21 million people, you're talking about 500, 600, 700 ballots making a difference. That's how tight this is. And, Democrats have not been in control of Florida for 20 years. So needless to say, this is a very anxiety-inducing, but we're willing to fight for it.
All right, then, Pam Keith, I surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much. I want to go to my panel here. Brandon Cooper, of course, he is with Chair of Prince George's County Republican Party, right? That's what you are?
After the election yesterday, no longer.
Former chair. So what happened? What happened? You lost?
No, no, never lose, Roland. I served one term and I'm done.
Okay, all right, I'm just checking. All right, things change.
One and done.
Eugene Craig, CEO, Eugene Craig Organization, Cleo Monago, socio-political analyst and activist, Malik Abdu, Republican communications consultant. Folks, look, at the end of the day, extremely small margins there in Florida. And I thought it was weird last night that Andrew Gillum was conceding when we found out some 40,000 votes in Broward County had not been counted. Plus, you throw in those absentee and provisional ballots. I mean, when it's that small, look, to me, you say, look, count everything, then I'll concede, but
the last 20 years of Florida should tell you, from 2000 election to now, Florida has never decided on election night. So I was surprised as well that he conceded so early. Of all the black governors running, I thought that Gillum had the best chance of winning. One other thing I looked up online as we were talking, there's an automatic recount if it's within 0.5%. It's at 0.6% right now. And
yeah,
so I'm just really surprised.
I mean, and again, even I was talking to people in his camp, and they said, okay, what they felt that it was 103,000. They just didn't see it. But again, I think kept coming down. And look what happened last night to Congressman Will Hurd, Republican, San Antonio. Everybody called the election for Will Hurd. AP, no, I actually didn't call it. I simply said we said AP reported this.
I saw a tweet.
And then what ended up happening was they kept counting. Ortiz Jones, closer and closer. By 2:30 in the morning, they went, oh my God, damn. She's winning by 300 votes.
And I think he closed it out this morning, I think.
It's great. He's still in the Congress,
Well, in the Gillum camp, somebody's probably going to get fired because typically it's somebody who recommends that to the candidate so they can.
Well, first of all, if he loses, everybody fired.
Well,
it don't matter.
But my point is that this one person, if he wins,
not going to the government,
is going to be the one that's truly fired.
Yeah, it's going to be a number of them. I think it's exciting anyway. The fact that we're just down to the wire, a couple of points away, I think it's exciting anyway. And I can't wait to see what's happening with Abram. Has she conceded?
Well, no. She actually, I'm going to talk about that in a second. But the other piece is here, which is important. I think Andrew Gillum has to fight this all the way through because you have to send a signal to your supporters.
Right.
Every vote must be counted. Even if it comes down and he loses by 5,000, 10,000, you want every vote counted.
Yeah, you want
every provisional vote, every absentee ballot, the questions that Pam raised, you want all those questions answered. In terms of people saying, well, no, your provisional ballot won't count. You need all of that stuff answered, and because we still have fundamental problems with our voting system in this country.
Tell me about it.
I mean, and I don't care. This ain't a Democrat or Republican thing. It's a problem. We saw yesterday when you have all of these polling places where you have folks who didn't have power cords. When you had all sorts of stuff
in my county. We ran out of ballots in my county. Some precincts ran out of ballots.
Dude, I mean, again, that has an impact. I just think that that's a fundamental problem that we have that we have to deal with, and so every ballot must be counted. And so in just 1 second, we're going to be talking to Ayanna Presley, of course, who won in Massachusetts. So let me know, folks, when she's on the line. Then also we'll be talking about what happened, of course, what is happening in Georgia. Speaking of Georgia, Lucy McBath, who was running for Congress, of course, she was down last night when we went off the air by about 10,000 votes. By this morning, she was up 3,000 against Republican Karen Handel. That is shocking to a lot of folks in Georgia. Yes, in Georgia.
That's it?
Of course, Lucy McBath, of course, is the mother of Jordan Davis, a young man who was shot and killed in Jacksonville, Florida, by the man who said that the music was too loud in their car. He went to prison. She became an activist on gun rights, but then she said, you know what? I need to have more of an impact by running for politics. Karen Handel, of course, was the one who beat Ossoff in the runoff last year. Many people said that Handel, that was a conservative district. That's the one that Newt Gingrich used to be member of Congress. They said she was actually going to win. but Lucy McBath appealed to women when it came to the issue of guns. She ran a tough campaign, and they had some mistakes here and there, but she kept at it. And again, she went up about 300 votes around 3 a.m. and then that lead has extended in the morning to about 3,000. And so they're still counting there, but very much McBath could very well be the next member of Congress from that district.
I mean, let's looking at the district and looking at the race that Karen Handel won in the runoff for Ossoff. If you look at the original election, the first election, Ossoff almost smoked her. He came close to knocking her off in the first election. So I don't think it's necessarily shocking that.
Hold tight 1 second, folks. A big win last night in Massachusetts for Ayanna Pressley. Of course, she is headed to Congress, the first woman of color to represent Massachusetts in Congress. She joins us right now on the line. Ayanna, first of all, Congresswoman-elect, welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thank you, Roland.
Obviously, it was a big night for you, a big night for others like Jahana Hayes. There's others. There are several African Americans who won last night, and obviously you must feel good. But what does it feel to also be a part of the largest class of black members of Congress in American history?
Incredible, stunning, and deserved. You know, we are making, although they've been incremental strides towards leadership parity when it comes to race and gender, last night felt like a seismic shift. As I said in my remarks, that for women of color, the barriers for us are much harder than glass. It's not a glass ceiling, it's a concrete one. And we busted wide open yesterday. And we just have to continue to build upon that. I know in all of our races we expanded the electorate and engaged new voices in democracy. And we want those folks to stay connected and engaged, not just for an election cycle, but just for the preservation of our democracy.
When you look at the issues that we're talking about in this race, obviously health care was a huge issue. What is going to be your focus when you are sworn in January?
Well, you know, first order right now is in earnest beginning to make the case for the committee assignments that I'm hoping to have. Education and workforce, judiciary for criminal justice reform, because there does appear to be, although for different reasons, a bipartisan appetite for criminal justice reform, and also for the subpoena power and investigative reach of judiciary. Education and workforce, because the Massachusetts 7th is the most diverse and unequal district in our congressional delegation, and I see those as two means to address those systemic inequalities and disparities. But before I can get to any of that, what I'm looking forward to is a conversation with Democratic leadership about the vision and the future and the direction of this party. I think our races were key to our entering a Congress that is in a Democratic majority. There are lessons to be learned about our messages, the type of campaigns that we ran, rejecting corporate PAC money, people-powered movements, broad and diverse grassroots coalitions, investing in ethnic and specialty media, and the list goes on. I think we demonstrated an aspirational vision and a strength of courage, and people responded. And so it was less a referendum against the hate coming out of Washington, but really more a mandate for hope. And that's what we have to do a better job as a party, is lifting up what we are for, not simply resisting. I think our closing argument of health care was spot on. And in the races where we came up short, it is not because our candidates were not compelling or inspiring or didn't run effective campaigns. It's that they were drowned out by the hate and the fear-mongering of the current occupant of the White House, which has fanned the flames of polarization in our country.
Gotta ask you this. There's a lot of conversation out there in terms of the next Speaker of the House, whether or not that should be Nancy Pelosi. Have you made a decision whether you will support Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House? Do you want to see an African American become Speaker of the House?
I'm not sure who all will be putting their names forward. But certainly I think we all benefit from. We have been toiling in the vineyard of democratic and electoral politics for a long time, and I think we are certainly deserving of representation at all levels. I don't know who's going to put their name forward, but again, I think it's a premature conversation. I can't select a leader when I'm not even sure what the vision is for the party. I wouldn't hire a principal for a school if we weren't clear on the values and mission statement for the school. And so we've got to get straight on the values and mission statement of our school, the Democratic Party.
All right. Ayanna Pressley, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Congratulations on being elected to the United States Congress.
Thank you, Roland. You see what Johanna and Lucy and myself all have in common? Your show. So thank you.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. And of course, we'll be trying to get. We've had you on. We'll try to get Johanna on. So we're trying to get all the black folks who were elected last night on the Roland Martin on the filter. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you very much, folks. I talked about. First of all, I'm going to panel real quick. I asked the question about Nancy Pelosi, and the reality is we don't know who all is going to be running. So that's why everything today was about presumed. But I think she is going to definitely get challengers because, again, when you look, they're going to be Democrats who are going to be saying we need to have younger leaders when it comes to the party. But the reality is she is still one of the greatest tacticians.
She is
when it comes to wielding power in Congress.
She has.
The thing is this.
Hold on one second, Malik, then Eugene.
Yeah, she's done that. If you think about what she did during the 8 years of Obama, even when the Democrats lost the House, Nancy Pelosi brought votes home to Obama then. And she is a skilled tactician. You know, she's great. The president complimented her today. I don't know if he really means
Endorsed
that.
her.
But I think it's actually a good thing. I think they probably do need to have someone like her. I would love to run against Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. But that does not discount her experience and what she brings coming in. Whether or not they're going to put a black leader in that fold, we've already kind of tried that. I think at some point, if you guys don't remember, it was it Jim Clyburn, where they made him number 3?
No, actually, no.
What was it?
No, first of all, when they took control last time, he was number 3, and when they went back into the minority status, they created the 4th position. And again, but what CBC wants, they want either number 1 or number 2. That is Speaker or Majority Leader. Eugene.
The thing is this.
Eugene, then Brandon.
The thing is this. As it stands right this second, there are 11 incoming members, none of which I believe are black, so this does not include any members of the CPC, that have pledged not to vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. That's almost the entire margin right now in the Democratic caucus. The vote for Speaker is an absolute vote on the floor of the House. It has to have an absolute majority. If it doesn't have an absolute majority, another vote is held. Nominations are reopened up. What makes it a little bit more complicated is that Clyburn just drew a challenger for whip. The member out of Colorado just threw her hat in the ring to challenge Clyburn for majority whip. So you're going to see shake up and down in that leadership chain. And I've said it last night. I'll say it again tonight. I don't think Nancy Pelosi is going to end up as Speaker as long as you have 10 or so CBC members join the other 11 members.
Got it.
Last night, me and Eugene made a bet that Larry Holcomb would win by double digits. Eugene lost the bet, had to pay up. Let's make another bet today that Speaker Pelosi will be the Speaker of the House come next year. Last night, when she was speaking, the chants of Speaker are heard in the room. It went trending last night, hashtag Madam Speaker. You have Donald Trump coming out today saying that, she's going to be Speaker. Again, I understand all your cases for it. I agree. With all the ROI, the return on investment that we deserve in the party, I do believe we should have a number 1 and number 2 spot. But looking at the political realities of Congress, I'm betting you, Roland, and you're going to do this as well, Roland, let me know, I'm betting you that Nancy Pelosi will become Speaker of the House.
I don't give a damn about your bets.
All right.
Go on, Cleo.
Didn't Pelosi, and I may be wrong here, but didn't Pelosi advise anti-Trump people to back off?
Yeah, well, first of all, she said in terms of the whole idea of impeachment. Saying that shouldn't be the
They're
case.
friends, just so you know. They've been friends for years.
Because I think that's interesting that because one of the things I've been hearing about since we found out about this majority or this larger black Congress, including with Maxine being involved, is that there's going to be a larger push to impeach Trump. Have you heard?
Of course.
And the Speaker of the House, which is a very powerful position, said back off.
Right.
So maybe that's why Trump likes her.
Well, but look, John Boehner, said a lot of things, and we saw how that ended. Paul Ryan said a lot of things, and we saw how that almost ended. The thing is,
but Trump is the president.
The thing is this.
She's the Speaker.
But here's the piece, and this is the reality because we saw with the House Freedom Caucus. Democrats, if they're the number, 227, whatever it is,
up by 5.
Okay, so this is very simple. If you get 50 Democrats who say,
You need 20. You don't need 50. You need.
No, I'm saying. So what then happens is, because what Pelosi is going to do, if she's Speaker, is the exact same thing that Republicans did. You're not going to take something to the floor and hope you get votes on the other side. You're going to want that 218 in your own caucus. Yeah. And so the ability to be able, so the question is, will you have Democrats? And this is the one thing the Democrats don't do, the Republicans do. Have true hardliners. Will you have Democrats on that side who will say, unless this happens, we ain't voting? That's the whole issue right there. That's the whole issue right there.
Huh? That's the question.
Trump.
See, it happens.
What Trump said today, you might have all heard this too, that y'all talking about investigating me. Y'all investigating me, I'm going to investigate y'all.
Got it.
That's a paraphrase. He didn't say y'all,
but
probably
what you're talking about. Well, it's one of the things that we talked about, of course, what was happening in Georgia. Of course, Stacey Abrams, she spoke last night, and she made it clear she's going to continue to fight this thing out. They're still counting those ballots there in Georgia as we speak. Last night, you know, we were talking to, of course, LaTosha Brown and Cliff Albright. They, of course, they filed a lawsuit against Brian Kemp. As it stands right now, I mean, you talk about a difference of less than 70,000 votes. Let's go live to Atlanta with LaTosha Brown and Cliff Albright. First and foremost, glad to have y'all back. When we talk about what is going on here, Abrams did not do what Andrew Gillum did. She came out last night, gave a speech, and she says, we are going to fight this thing because she is trying to force this thing to a December 4th runoff.
That's right. We want all votes counted. That in this process, we want to make sure that every single vote is counted. And I think that she did the right thing. When you've got a election that is this tight and is razor thin, and you combine that with some of the voter suppression issues that have been going on, what we want to make sure is that every single person that cast a vote, that vote is in fact counted.
And when we think about this, LaTosha, when we talk about what is going on there, we saw so many voting irregularities. Of course, we still have outstanding questions about mail-in ballots, provisional ballots, and so those are critical. And we know that so many African Americans have been forced to do provisional balloting because of the whole issue of voter purging. And you may, look, we don't know what's there, but you might have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 votes sitting out there that could go the way of Stacey Abrams.
Absolutely. That's very possible. It was so, the voter suppression was so widespread. There were so many people that got to polls and had to deal with vote to cast provisional ballots that it could certainly be 10, 20, 30,000 votes out there that need to be counted and a part of this process. And I think that's part of one of the downsides you see for voter suppression, that when there's voter suppression, right, you've got this environment where that actually leads up to black votes not being counted. But you also, if you're educating folks, as we did in the work that we and others did in Georgia, we told people not to leave the polls and to demand a provisional ballot. So we know that there are thousands of provisional ballots, primarily cast by African-American voters who went to voter suppression problems, their names not being on at the polling site, on the voting rolls. There was one woman who was a 92-year-old woman who voted at this particular poll in the primary election just a couple of months ago. She shows up to vote and her name is not on the voting list. But she cast a provisional ballot, and there's all kinds of reports that we received and witnessed on yesterday of people casting provisional ballots. So we know that there are thousands of those ballots out there that could be counted and could make a difference in this election.
All right, Cliff. Again, when we look at these voting issues, I just thought it was right to Stacey Abrams to send a signal to her supporters that she wants every ballot to be counted, because even if she loses, it allows for you to then go back and study what went right, what went wrong, what were the numbers, what happened here, what happened there, to be able to deal with the next election, the next statewide election.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Roland. That's why we thought it was important for her to fight. We think it's important that we continue to count every ballot. We think that it's important. That's why this lawsuit was filed, that LaTosha is the lead litigant on, because we need to open up this process, get more transparency. We know that with Brian Kemp, we've seen an unprecedented level of conflict of interest. And so we need to be able to see what's been going on with this process. Honestly, that's also the reason why in Florida it's so important that we be able to get to that that automatic recount, because once you get to the recount, you can get some more transparency to see what's been going on with all this voter suppression that's been taking place, these provisional ballots, even the way that absentee ballots are being treated, right? Which ballots are being thrown away. When you have the candidate who's also the referee and judge and picking the voters, it's just open up for all kinds of unethical behavior.
All right, Cliff, Latasha, we certainly appreciate it. Y'all have been doing a bang-up job with Black Voters Matter. Thank you so very much for keep fighting and keep us updated with what's happening in Georgia.
We will. Thank you, Roland.
All right, thank you very much. Go back to our panel here. What they are exposing in Georgia has a direct impact on all elections there. And again, when we see what happened there, what's happened in Texas, what happened in Maryland, what happened in Florida, what happened in Michigan, what happened, I mean, it's just crazy to me when you go around here and look, you even have, you need Republicans and Democrats to at some point say, look, let's stop playing games here when it comes to voting, which is why I just still believe that if they want to play games, you have to enshrine the right to vote in a state constitution to cut this nonsense out, because as long as you leave it up to partisan folks, you're going to keep having problems.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Maryland, we passed a constitutional amendment yesterday that allows now for same-day voting registration on election day. Up until now, it's been you can vote, same-day voter registration or early voting, but now on election day, and I think it should go a step further, where it enshrines the right to vote.
And also should be automatic registration.
I'm fine.
I
Republicans passed in Georgia.
I don't understand, huh?
As the Republicans passed in Georgia.
Well, here's the deal. Republicans can pass automatic registration in Georgia. Don't mean a damn thing when you're still trying to suppress it. It don't mean a damn thing when you have automatic registration, but you're still purging. It don't mean a damn thing when you got automatic registration, but you don't have cables for the voting machines. It don't mean a damn. Hold on, I ain't done. It don't mean a damn thing when you got a polling location where you got 300 people in line and you got three booths to vote in. It don't mean a damn thing if you got automatic registration in Georgia, but then you got down up paper ballots. It don't mean a damn thing if you got automatic registration in Georgia, but then you want to cut out 7 to 9 early voting locations in a county that's 60% black. So and please, please tell me. First of all, the consultant who made the suggestion, I'm not done. The consultant who made the suggestion gave $500 to Brian Kemp's campaign.
Who hired the consultant?
Who?
The Democratic County Board of Elections.
The people who ran that, and this is very simple. And the consultant went around Georgia and multiple places. And how But how do you even have a consultant who's giving you advice on elections when he gave money to one of the candidates?
They should do their due diligence a little bit better, but I also make sure it's very clear.
But I'm asking the question.
The Democratic County Board hired a consultant
to advise
them.
I know, Brandon, you so desperate to say, oh my God, can we give Republicans credit? No. But the fact of the matter is this here. In Georgia, when you were Secretary of State, when the previous Secretary of State resigned.
And I agree with you.
1 second.
He should resign. He should resign.
But he didn't.
And that's wrong.
But he didn't.
You
know what?
And that's
the other Republicans in Georgia didn't say a damn thing.
And I'm a Maryland Republican, but that's wrong. I agree with you.
Do you do this on purpose?
Well, no,
do you try to surgically sneak in a Republican affirmation?
I'm fair. And I called out.
No, that's not just fair. That's a desperate microscopic attempt to throw something relevant about the Republican Party in every conversation.
The problem again.
I agree with you on that. I think problem, but on both sides, and y'all don't like that.
I think Brandon, to a degree, enjoys Roland making him a viral moment.
The bottom line is this here. If you hold it up, which party consistently is trying to suppress voting?
Yeah, it's one-sided. It's not. It's clear cut.
Not what, Malik?
We're looking at.
See, here's the deal.
I did not disagree with you, Roland.
Can I get a?
Hold on, no, stop. I asked Malik a question.
Okay, Malik.
Because he's a Republican. That's why you asked.
No, I got 3 Republicans on here.
Yeah,
okay, I'm gonna ask all 4 of y'all.
2.5, but all right.
I'm gonna ask all 4 of y'all. Ain't no 2.5. I'm gonna hold it up. There are 2 parties: Democrat, Republican.
Yeah.
Republican, Democrat. Out of these 2 parties, which party across the board consistently is trying to lead voter suppression?
Republicans.
Hold up 1 second. Malik, answer the question.
Well, I do believe that.
Also an R.
I do believe that there is a good perception or reason to believe that Republicans.
Eugene, answer the question.
It's Republicans. It's factual.
Brandon, answer the question.
I don't agree with your premise and set up your question.
Yeah, I thought so. See, right there, right there, right there.
Statement right there. You blame it on
Cleo, go ahead.
Wait. Specific examples. North Carolina. We talk about Kemp not resigning. I agree with you, Roland.
Cleo, go ahead.
Ground for agreement.
Cleo, go ahead.
No, I'm just simply illuminating the fact that that question is a simple question and there's a simple answer. And it's difficult for some Republicans to admit the white supremacist agenda and toxic behavior of this party that they insist on joining. And sometimes when well, yes, it is, because one of the reasons that the voters are repressed and people that's one of the reasons why they keep making sure certain people are not voting, particularly black folks, is because they want to keep white power and they think black people are going to interrupt that.
I hope we talk about the white supremacy that was on.
That's what voter repression is.
We'll talk about that, but you know.
I mean, that's why the sister and that brother just have a program they have about black voters matter. Black votes matter because of white people's, Republican people's this time, interruption of black people's simple attempt to vote.
There is a greater history with Republicans, so I will agree.
Yeah, history like yesterday.
A greater history.
Yeah, history. Wait a minute, hold on. It's a great. Wait a minute. No, you're right. No. It's a greater history, past, present, future. So here's the other deal. Here's to me what I want to see, regardless of who's in power.
Yeah.
I want to see the right to vote in surrounding state constitutions. I want to see what they just passed in Michigan. That is having a bipartisan commission, take it out of the hands of the legislature to draw the lines.
Yeah.
I want to see that. First of all, guys, give me a take of where is Sanchez Latino decisions. Do we have him there? So I want to see that. I want to see well, y'all need to tell me. I want to see automatic voter registration. I want to see same-day registration. I want to see politicians stopping people from trying to vote. And I want to see them stop playing these games, because if you want to compete, compete. Make it fair. Your ideas, their ideas, but don't try to rig the system to guarantee elections. Folks, a huge voting took place all across the country. We saw that happening, of course, in many places like Texas. Although Beto O'Rourke did not beat Ted Cruz, he did lift the fortunes of Democrats in suburban counties. Democrats took out 3 Republican members of Congress. Joining us right now is Dr. Gabriel Sanchez, a principal at Latino Decision and associate professor of political science at the University of New Mexico. Dr. Sanchez, glad to have you here. We saw after 2016, initial exit polling showed this significant number of Latino support for Donald Trump. Latino Decisions went back and crunched the numbers and had an alternative view. Just your immediate assessment of what we saw yesterday. First, let's talk about Florida. I was hearing from folks that Puerto Ricans in significant numbers voted for Rick Scott. They thought that was going to help Bill Nelson and Andrew Gillum. What did you see in those numbers in terms of Latinos in Florida?
Yes, let's give you the overall number. You know, this comes from our election eve data that validated 2,600 voters. So this is the data to go to. Don't go to the exit poll. You've seen our take on that. But overall, 74% of Latinos voted for Democrats in this election cycle. But in Florida, only 59%. So it is fair to say, even though the majority of Latinos in Florida voted with Democrats, I think part of the story in Florida was that, you know, primarily Cuban voters, but also we're seeing some Puerto Rican and other demographics of Latino voters out there still are more divided on their vote choice than you see Latinos across the country in places outside of Florida.
So when you talk about that again for people, because this is the issue that we have here in this country. Look, when we talk about African Americans, we know exactly who we're talking about. It's a small percentage of people who you put in that category who are black immigrants from other countries. When you talk about Latinos, we're talking, especially with Florida, we're talking about Cubans. We're talking about Dominicans. We're talking about Puerto Ricans. We're talking about folks from other countries as well. So it's not as clear cut as it is in places like Texas.
That's right. I mean, thinking about Florida, you also got a wide number of Mexicans out there now. So when we're doing our focus groups and we're doing our polling, you really have to slice up the state and make sure that you're talking to those specific communities, because just like any population, they're diverse, right? And so thinking about all Latinos in Florida is a little misguided. We've got to break it down and look also at generational differences. Even among Cuban voters, we're seeing younger millennial Cubans tend to vote highly Democratic in line with Mexicans and Latinos in other states. So it's really important to capture that variation. But again, 59% of Latinos out there did vote for Democratic candidates.
What did you see in Texas? I saw one initial exit polling, and that's why, like, we came on, Brandon raised the exit polling data. Again, the issue that I have with exit polling, look, it's a quick snapshot. It's a lot different once you start going in, once you start drilling down further, and then beginning to look at high concentration areas, precincts, things along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, in Texas, keep in mind, exit poll didn't capture any Latinos in the southern region of the state along the Rio Grande Valley, which is about 90+% in all those precincts Latino. That's about a quarter of all Latinos in the state of Texas that voted are in that region. Exit poll misses them completely. So in Texas, obviously, you don't see Beto O'Rourke do as well as he did without the support of Latino voters. So I think there was clear, and this is partly thinking about 2020, if he was able to almost capture that and lift the votes of a lot of other Democratic candidates across congressional districts, imagine the energy that Latino voters will have in 2020 when they get an opportunity to vote against President Trump. You saw the outcome of that in Texas this time around. It's going to be even greater in 2020.
I still keep making the point that one of the most fundamental issues, first of all, before I get to that question, what is the number now of eligible but unregistered Latinos in Texas?
It's still a huge number, thinking about percentage-wise.
Well, for long as it was 2.1 million, has the number gone down? Is it 1.5, 1.6? Is it 1.8? Any idea what the number is?
Yeah, it's been between 1.5 and 1.6 million. We'll know probably in the next week a little bit more definitive.
So this is what I have been saying is very interesting because when the 19 black women who are running for judge, who ran for judge in Harris County and all won, and so when I was out with them on Saturday, we were going down the street, and so we were passing. That was a Latino guy who was in his driveway watching all these cars come by with his police escort, and I shouted. I said, "Hey, have you voted?" And he said, "No." I said, "Why not?" He said, "I'm not registered." And I said, "Dude, you can't change anything not being registered." And then he says, "Well, that's not the only way the change was happening in this country." And then I hollered, "Well, what the hell else can you suggest?" And the thing that I keep saying is that the only way that number is going to shrink is if you literally have folks who put massive resources to move people into those areas where they're living in those areas, seeing folks every day, and literally mobilizing and organizing. It can't be done only within the framework of a political campaign.
That's right. That's right. I mean, in the data that we collected, we asked folks directly, how many of you tried to mobilize, bring others in your network out to vote? Highest number we've ever seen for Latinos. So I think that's part of the equation, is getting folks out there, not relying on the parties, not relying on the candidates, but doing this more grassroots. It worked this election cycle. But keep in mind, one demographic group that we're talking about, African-American and Latino voters, roughly half of all the eligible voting population from those communities are millennials. And even though more of them voted this time around than normal, all of our focus groups on millennials indicate that a lot of those folks will tell you they want social change, but they see social media, going to protests as more impactful in creating social change than voting. Well, so I think it's really drilling down to that youth demographic and shaking them up and telling them, man, you're seeing the reality of election outcomes and you're seeing the differences that it makes. You got to get out there, you got to register, and then you got to vote.
Well, look, I'm seeing that with some of these ignorant-ass black men I'm dealing with on social media who are saying that, oh, no, we need to have candidates who are presenting us a black agenda and that's just black. And then when I mention the black people who are actually running, like one brother's like, oh, there are no black politicians in the whole country who are representing black people. I'm going, damn, really? Like not one? And so you have people who believe they can create systematic change, and as if you can create systematic change without politics. That's nuts.
Well, absolutely. I mean, one other point on Texas, I caught y'all's conversation about voter suppression. I was fortunate with my colleague Matt Barreto, also from Latino Decisions, do all the expert witness report on the photo ID case in Texas. Fortunately, we won that, but 1.2 million Latinos and African Americans would have been disenfranchised if that law were to be able to hold up. And there's still a lot of speculation. We heard from a lot of people thinking, well, hey, I thought that photo ID law was in place. I don't have the right ID. That's why I didn't go out to vote. So that's part of voter suppression. Even if it gets defeated in courts, that lingering effect is real. And we hear from a lot of folks, hey, I didn't go because I don't have the right ID, even though the courts threw out the case. So I think voter suppression is a real phenomenon. And to answer the question y'all are batting around, if anybody can name one state that's been in Democratic hands that had pushed for photo ID law, I mean, that's a really important dimension of voter suppression that not a lot of folks talk about.
All right, Dr. Sanchez, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Look forward to having you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
My pleasure. Big fan.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I want to go to our panel here on this issue. So it's been very interesting. So you had folks like that dude Tariq out there. Oh, no, there's no agenda, so you shouldn't vote. Then somebody told me that Corey Holcomb was saying, somebody said he gave these valid reasons why you shouldn't vote. Here to me, I think is part of the issue. One, the people who have for years sold the notion that if you only vote, that changes things. That's nuts, because you can't just only vote. I always say voting is the end of one process at the beginning of another. But the other thing is, I believe you have to also connect the dots.
Right.
Because the reality is most people really don't understand the role that government plays in their lives every single day. To have somebody say, well, yeah, like literally one brother said, yeah, the people who run for DAs, they're part of the same system. Krasner in Philadelphia comes in and is changing the system as DA. Amaris Ayala in Florida. Craig Watkins, when he became the first DA in Dallas County, put into place a program to retest significant cases. More than 30 individuals, mostly black, who were convicted in prison, some as many as 20 and 30 years, were let go because the DNA was retested. That doesn't happen if that black DA is not there. And so we can't act as if you don't have black people of conscience who run for positions who say, I'm going to do the right thing in the position, and then go, well, no, they not real, they bougie. I mean, at some point, you can't satisfy some of these folks, Cleo.
But Roland, see, you are brilliant, educated, and a political. You know what time it is, the day it happened, whose mama it was, and what day it turned blue. I mean, you know all this stuff. A lot of people in our community, and I'm not saying this is a good idea, and I agree with what you're saying in terms of the logic of it. But as I say over and over again, unfortunately, a lot of us are not coming from a place of logic. We come from a place of impulse. And when people come from a place of impulse and emotion, they rely on optics. And black males feel like they've been let down over and over again, including by Barack Obama.
Yes.
Who never directly addressed black men, not unless there was a Trayvon Martin crisis, and it was even abstract at that. So a lot of brothers are watching the landscape and seeing police brutality still being there, some people seeing black men still be murdered, wondering what the Congressional Black Caucus is doing, which appears, from their perspective, they're doing nothing. And they feel like while they're dealing with being followed around the store and all the other traumas that black men deal with, that there's nobody in the explicit ways. Everything is all abstract, and then we have these black women affirmations around their voting power, and black men are not addressed, are not spoken to, they don't exist, they feel like it's all irrelevant. So what you're saying is all true, but it's all abstract, and people are not really understanding that.
Reality is perception.
And that's why, to me, why having the information where you can say, no, this happened, this happened, this happened. I literally had one woman who said, well, Roland, you got to really, hear both sides. And I said, by not voting, I said, sister, I said, I can't hear that side. I said, now, I'm listening to you. I understand what you're saying. And I said, and I can walk you through why I disagree with it. I said, but the problem she says, well, I got a black son, and change is not happening fast enough. And I'm going, look, first of all, that's been the mantra of black people for 399 years, not happening fast enough. I think what has to happen is, and this is to me also the difference that we don't see today, what Reverend Barber has been trying to do. The beauty of SCLC, the beauty of CORE, the beauty of, and I can't wait to, guys, we're going to replay the interview that I did with Reverend Dr. James Lawson, one of our greatest mobilizers, organizers, and thinkers. The biggest difference that we have is we don't have these institutions, the citizenship education training. Dr. Dorothy Cotton, who just died a few months ago, she was over the SCLC's citizenship education training. This is what she said in her book, and even when I interviewed her. And guys, we have that interview. It's also on my YouTube channel. When you came into SCLC, you didn't say, I want to join SCLC, then boom, you went to the meeting. No.
But what year was this?
This was in the 60s.
That's what I thought.
No, but follow me here. But that's why I'm trying to get us to say what's old ain't old. Yeah. It can also be new. When you came in,
it's environmentally old.
This is what they did. They said, first of all, I need to find out who you are, how you think, and frankly, where you stand. And then they said they had to reprogram folks where they were, and then when they passed, then sent them back out. Yeah. We got to have citizen training. We got to actually have sessions teaching people about civics, teaching people about actually what is happening, as opposed to walking around going, oh, ain't nothing happening.
Well, I think it's what you said, earlier when you started off and saying that there's been a failure to connect the dots. Because for years, you know, we've been told, especially the black communities, that you just need to vote. You know, the whole, whether it's vote or die or any of the other slogans, we've been told that the only thing that we need to do is vote. And so there's real no explanation beyond the fact that we needed to vote. And so you have politicians for generations.
And folks voted, and they're kind of like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah. So what else?
Disappeared.
2 years.
Yeah. So what else?
Then
Then they didn't vote next time because then nothing happened.
And
From their perspective.
because after the election, then it was like, okay, no, you still got to show up. You still got to
hold them accountable.
It's a 24/7, 365 process. I mean, and I agree with you. It falls on the politicians, it falls on the candidate, it falls on the organization's responsibility to keep folks engaged, to keep voters engaged. So you see the small wins. So you see if I give a historical point, when Ted Kennedy died, and Scott Brown got elected in 2009 in his seat, that was a small win that helped catapult Republicans taking the House in 2010. Oh, that's a good point. That was a small win. When Doug Jones won last year, that was a small win that folk could see and touch and experience that helped propel what happened yesterday.
Cleo.
If we want black people to vote, particularly black men, but everybody should vote who's black and everybody else, but I'm talking about the people who feel the most alienated from my own research and observation. We have to not just say, look, you better vote and you better, you know, come to break down with all these theoretical facts that you often break down. We have to actually take seriously and engage their perspective, their worldview. I mean, back when Lawson was doing things, black people were less confused. We're now very, very confused. You got black folks all in large numbers with blonde hair.
Sustained. Okay. Cleo, in court, sustained means the judge agrees with you.
Okay. I should have known
Cleo
that.
did not see the movie Best Man.
No.
Go ahead.
No, I did not. But I'm telling you that.
Go ahead.
That black folks. The other day, I was in Baltimore and I saw. Well, I probably shouldn't say this. That'd be too controversial. Anyway, black folks are confused.
Well, you know,
Brandon. Hold on.
Cleo, then Brandon.
I want to back that up. Black people are confused and are being chastised for being confused. Our youth are ahistorical and being chastised for being ahistorical. And people don't understand that people don't know that they don't know that they don't know.
Hold on. I'm coming to you, Brandon. But I got to say this here. Because, y'all, so I tweeted this photo of me yesterday with my Black Voters Matter hoodie on. I said, you need to vote because Trayvon Martin can't, because Jordan Davis can't, because Aiyana Jones can't, Rakia Boyd can't. So I've had some people on my side like, oh man, you out of touch with how you raising up the dead to force folks to vote. And I said, you do know that we said Jimmy Lee Jackson was killed in Selma, and that's what that precipitated a bloody Sunday. I said, you do know when the death of Medgar Evers and the 4 girls in Birmingham. I said, not the king. I can go on and on. I said, you act like it's new that we've said when somebody black has been killed and then you're fighting for social justice and we said vote because they can't. And these people like, oh, you out of touch because you shouldn't be using their names. And I'm going, have you read a book? Do you even understand that this ain't new with black people? I got to go to Brandon. I'm going to come back to Cleo.
Quickly, you're talking about being misinformed. One of my favorite quotes, Denzel Washington said, if you watch the news, you're misinformed. If you don't watch, you're uninformed. To that very point, I think we're a victim of our own culture nowadays. We got a 24-hour news network. You got instant gratification with social media. People have short attention spans nowadays, and education system is not controlled by us. And so I agree to your point, Roland. You're talking about having civic lessons and trying to retrain our minds. You talked about before, I think, the weakness of modern day sororities, fraternities, nonprofits, and churches in that atmosphere. I think that's where the focus needs to go to having that resurgence.
And to Cleo's point, again, I've talked to these brothers and I'm listening to them, and what I'm trying to get them to do, and also it's another great interview we did with Ali Sadiq, with part of the Beat Woke deal. So trust me, we're going to be we posted those interviews. We're going to be kicking those interviews out so you can actually see them in this entirety. Because trust me, there's a reason why I'm doing those interviews. Because the thing is, yes, people are saying, well, I'm not seeing progress fast enough. But progress has never been fast. Right. It's never been fast. And for me, if I got an option between giving up
or
keep going, I can't give up. Right. And so that education is important. And I'm talking about, and then so my issue is, so the reason last night I called out Tariq and I called out Jason Whitlock And then when somebody told me, well, Corey Holcomb, I'm going to call all these cats out, because my deal is when you have a platform, you have a responsibility with a platform. Yeah. And the question is, what do you do with your platform? And if your deal is, oh, they all corrupt, I ain't voting, just pray to God and return to the family, all is going to be well. When I asked Jason Whitlock, I said, okay, fine, Jason. Let's say you believe that the home should be a mama and a daddy, and they believe in God. Well, say, well, fine. Let's say you got a black family, daddy there, love mama, families together, they go to church on Sunday, they go to Bible study on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I said, and when they walk out that door, the kids going to sorry schools. Now what we going to do? They love Jesus, and they got a whole great family. What we going to do? And he couldn't answer the question.
And that's one of the things that...
The reason that we know, and hey, it's your fault I'm bringing him up, Roland. The reason we know who Jason is because white people approve of Jason. What if the fact that white people approve of Jason and appreciate the confusing anti-black rhetoric that he says, we wouldn't even know he exists. And white people always the white media always parading confused black folks or somewhere on television every chance they get. Charles Barkley, we can go on and on, so they can create confusion among black people. And unfortunately, it works. So you cannot ask Jason Whitlock a rational question about black people because his whole frame of reference and point of view and his whole theories are anti-black.
Yeah, well, and I think what we're talking about is voter apathy. And so the reason for voter apathy, I can use my community. I live in D.C.'s Ward 8. And during the midterms, I think we had about 8%. 8% of our residents voted. Only 8%. I think we're up to 30% now. But when you talk to people and you hear the reasons, this is, of course, D.C. has always been run by Democrats. There have been no Republicans to run D.C., and the schools are some of the worst in the nation. The crime is bad. The development, there's a lot of what people are talking about with gentrification and development. I'm going on a show after I leave here to actually talk about gentrification. But these are things that have happened in Democratic cities, and I think one of the things that I like to be mindful of is that I don't think this is something, voter apathy is not something that's isolated to black people. It's not. So if you're in West Virginia, you probably don't know the same reasons that you're voting for your candidate.
Disproportionate problem. That's black.
Yesterday, 2 out of 5 Americans didn't vote. Yeah. So it's not all racial boundaries. Apathy is not an issue just for that. Going back to the 2016 election, 51% of Americans didn't vote for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, and so it's those who vote who are having a say, and that doesn't represent necessarily.
But most of them are voting though, compared to us.
I am going to make the point again that between now and the next local election, and between the 2020 presidential election, what is required is massive citizenship training. Yeah. What Reverend Barber has been doing with repairs of the breach in the Poor People's Campaign, they have been going to these places and they have not been holding rallies, they've been holding training sessions. They've been holding teaching. Reverend Dr. Jim Lawson in the Nashville movement, he told me something that was amazing. He said they spent 3 months discussing why they were doing what they were doing. Then the next 3 months, it was what they're going to do. Folks, that's 6 months
that's a plan.
Of them sitting down, conversing, hashing out your crazy idea, your crazy idea, your crazy idea, your crazy idea. He said it was all this back and forth. He said because what we were trying to do had never been done before. He said, so we need to know what the hell we were even doing. And so, and it was amazing because again, walking that through it and see when we talk about Diane Nash and James Bevel and all these people, they all came out of Lawson's Nashville movement. They were trained before they even got to Dr. King and SCLC. They went through training. We have people, and a lot of Black Lives Matter activists, and I'll say this, a lot of them were doing the training as well. But the issues that we have is we have to have that massive training. That's where the dots are connected, and that's where people go, oh, I ain't realized that person impacts this and that impacts this. Now I see why you saying you got to vote.
I agree with important trainings, but not in an echo chamber. I want to credit you with having a diversity of thought in these discussions. Man. It's needed.
No, I said training. I didn't say.
I'm agreeing with you.
Training means everybody.
I'm adding to your point. And it's not always going to understand, but you recognize that value of that. I'll make sure.
Training means everybody. Training means everybody.
Not everybody recognizes that. I'm agreeing it with you.
Well,
I agree with what you're saying, but I also want to reiterate that back in the day, in the 60s and 70s, we were a lot less confused about what our enemies and what our adversaries look like. Right now, some of us got more blonde hair than white folks. I'm talking about right now. So my point is that we need contextual discussions like what you said, but we also need to address the scar tissue that have resulted from years of no conversation and that has festered into mass confusion and people being alienated out of this whole process.
And again, though, I just give you just real quick a couple of things here, and I'm about to address this fool here on Twitter. It's perfect examples. No, seriously, because like this guy goes with his ass guy in alpha gear, ain't no different than a blood banging on a crib. Okay, that's pretty stupid. No, because follow me, because what he's saying is, oh, you in a frat, that same as the blood or a crip. First of all, I'm not killing another black man. I'm not committing crimes being in a fraternity.
And we all went to college.
But here's the second one. And why didn't he go to HBCU asking for a friend, more bougie BS?
Ooh.
No. Because see, we got to go ahead and deal with it. Because see, you got black folks out there who do the same thing. Here's what you need to understand. My high school, Jack Yates High School, right across the street. When I say across the street, cat corner, is Texas Southern University. Behind my school is University of Houston, Jack Yates High School. At Jack Yates High School, Magnet School of Communications, I was voted by the teachers the best student there in my 4 years. Did TSU recruit me? No. Did TSU have a School of Communications? Yes. University of Houston, PWI, School of Communications, they recruit me? No. Prairie View A&M University, it's the HBCU, 90 minutes away. They were on our campus my whole 4 years there. Did they recruit me? No. Why did I go to HBCU? Because my brother went to Texas A&M because they gave him an $8,000 scholarship. Because you know what? I got a $10,000 scholarship. And my sister got a $10,000 scholarship. Why didn't I go? Because my parents didn't have the damn money, and 3 of us were in college at one time. So you know what made sense? Us to all go to school at the same place. So when they sent money to one, it helped all 3, and it was scholarships. So while a bunch of y'all out there are questioning black folks and their commitment to HBCUs, do realize that I had to make a financial decision as to why, because my family couldn't afford it. So guess what my family now has? 3 college graduates, all from Texas A&M. And also, by the way, Texas A&M is a state university. Taxpayer dollars fund that school. Guess who grew up in Texas? My parents. Guess who are taxpayers? My grandparents. So Texas A&M is also my damn school. See, this is what y'all need to understand, because here's the other piece. A&M, Texas was one of the places did not want to accept the money from the federal government to create land grant institutions after the Civil War. It was black state legislators who supported the effort to create land grant institutions. So were it not for those black state legislators after the Civil War, then you would not have land grant institutions in southern states. Now that you've been properly educated as to why I didn't go to HBCU, let's go forward with our HBCU hashtag Giving Day. Press play. I want to see the stinger. Our Giving Day is up for right now, folks. So today's HBCU Giving Day School, by the way, for you haters, initiative that I created, is Xavier University of Louisiana, founded in 1925. Niche.com ranks Xavier #2 among the nation's historically black colleges and universities. And also, so be sure to go to, folks, xula.edu, xula.edu. And of course, they are #1 in the nation in the number of African-American graduates who go on to complete medical school. And so, and lastly, for the brother here answering, bunch of HBCU graduates, cut a check to your school.
There you go.
Florida A&M, y'all was talking about Andrew Gillum being a rattler. 5% of Florida A&M graduates give back to their institution. 5%. Wow. That means that 95% of all the Florida A&M University graduates don't send a dime or a nickel or a penny back to their alma mater. So all I'm saying is you're going to walk around with the letters on your shirt, on your jersey, or on your sweatshirt, or on your hat, or your license plate, on your keychain, then you might want to send a check back. That's all I'm saying. Cleo said a bunch of us are confused. Now I just unconfused some of y'all. All right, folks, we'll be broadcasting the show tomorrow. And also Friday, I'm going to be in San Francisco for the Afrotech conference. Looking forward to that. And we're going to have more conversation. We're going to talk about gerrymandering tomorrow. We'll be talking to somebody from Michigan where they passed a ballot initiative to now deal with gerrymandering in that state. And a federal judge has thrown out some seats in Maryland. We'll talk about that as well on tomorrow's show. Please go to our YouTube channel to watch, of course, our coverage last night. We broke it all down as well. Plus my commentary for y'all to stop listening to all these fake conscious Negroes out here who are telling you don't vote. We have no understanding what the hell they even talking about. Yeah, I called all of them out. So you want to see that commentary. And then we're going to be restreaming my interviews with Dr. James Lawson, Ali Sadiq, and others, including Chuck D, talking about why we must vote going beyond just election day. So, folks, don't forget to also support Roland Martin Unfiltered by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Your donations make this possible. If you want to say that we need unfiltered conversations, because I can tell you right now, give me a wide shot, please. You are not going to see 5 black men at the same time on any cable news network talking about the election, and they damn sure not go back to the wide shot, because I want them to see this. They damn sure ain't going to see 5 black men breaking down why black men are not voting. And so 5 of us at one time, it's probably going to take them about 3 weeks or a month to have 5 black men talking politics, 5 different black men talking politics. I'm just saying. So y'all be sure to support Roland Martin Unfiltered. All I'm asking is for our folks to give us an average of $50 each for the whole year to join our fan club. That's what we need. The goal is to get 20,000 people giving that so we can fund this to keep it independent, because I keep saying we got to fund our freedom because we can't depend on somebody else actually doing it. All right, y'all take care. Have a great night. Hi!